Well, here we are at the end of another week, another fun-filled week on my part. Anyway, I didn't know what you were doing, Pat. Were you having fun all week up there in Donegal?
I was, yeah. I had a great,
Tell us
was
what
a
you were
great day
doing. What were
yesterday.
you doing? What were you doing to get you
Yes,
fun?
yesterday, uh, I had such fun. I got a needle under my eye. That's how much fun it was. By the
Well, you
way,
did.
it's called age-related macular degeneration.
Have you have
Well,
you
it's macular de
have you
Go
threatened to
ahead.
sue the person that described it as that to you?
It's age-related, but really got me. No, it's a family. I think it's a family gene. So
Yeah,
several members of my family have it, and my mother had it. So I don't know whether it's age related or just genetically related, but it's
yeah.
a part of the makeup of the person anyway.
It's there anyway. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I can depress you by saying things are going to get worse. It's everything to
Uh,
do with age keeps
as,
getting worse.
as not true, Jude, as you get older, your body betrays you more and more. But
Ah,
then, hey, when you think about it, everything, if you're using someone for 70 years, it's nearly inevitable that things are going to wear out, isn't it?
that's true. And if you don't look after it during your life, if you're doing nothing but drinking and God knows what, then you
Well,
really
that's
have a problem.
hey, no, I believe in the theory as an Australian man. I knew he says I'm here for a good time, not a long time.
Yeah, but I heard them talking about that very thing today, how there need to be
Yeah,
more emphasis on not just, extending people's lives, but extending them lives that were, reasonably livable and happy and so on. That,
yeah.
that, that they've been making the mistake of just emphasizing the length of time. And as a result, people are spending the last 3 or 4 years of their lives in misery.
Billy Connolly had a great one. He says, "Funny that the good part of they couldn't add 10 years onto the start of your life rather than the end." He said when you're young and fit and all the rest of it. Dude, uh, and I'm not going to get into the details, but who the hell wants to be 95, doubly incontinent, have Alzheimer's, but then live 10 years to your 105? What's the point?
Yeah, yeah, good point. All right. Well, I suppose I would agree more if I could be there, because I've heard people say, "Oh, when you get old, I just as soon commit suicide." I said it to a guy, and I said, "What are you thinking about?" And he says, "Well, no, 75." And then I talked about it when he was 74, and he changed his mind.
He's mine, of course he did.
Anyway, let's get down to the business of the day and the business of the week. A lady called what's her first name? Braverman, Suella.
Suella.
She's actually christened, I think, something different from that. It was Sue Ellen or something. But anyway, she called herself Suella. And she's making a name for herself because she's saying that these marches in support of Palestine are hate marches, and that they're chanting from the river to the sea, which is Palestine will be free. That's essentially the same thing as saying wipe out Israel. She also says I think she mentioned, did she, that Sunday is Remembrance Sunday, and Saturday is the day that, tomorrow is the day that these guys are going to
The remembrance of it's Armistice Day.
So how do you react to all that, Pat? Is she a voice of reason and saying to people, well, you're actually going out there because you really hate Israel for what they've done?
Dude, I think what this woman has done is actually incendiary. And I also think it's very, very, very dangerous politically. What she's basically saying is anybody who sees the injustice being done to the Palestinians as a hate, and the right wing agenda at play there is unbelievable. In other words, if you don't support Israel, you're on the wrong side of history, you're wrong side of morals, you're wrong side of everything. Jude, I think it's what she said is absolutely disgraceful. Jude, I am 100% supporter of the Palestinian cause. I'm 100% against Hamas. But if you're looking for the source, the spring of all this, it's Israel. It's not Palestine. The fault line runs through Israel, not Palestine. And anybody that tries to tell you anything different, about 1 million Palestinians were pushed off their land way back in 1948. They walk around. A lot of them still have keys around their neck. In the refugee camps. of their houses that they were pushed off. There were massacres committed by the Israelis to get them off the land. And if you look at the maps of 1948, you'll see how much was Palestine and how much was Israel. Look at the maps in 2023 and see how much is Israel. There are illegal settlements. The Israelis have killed about 6,000 Palestinians in about the last 8 years. 253, I think it was, Palestinians died between January 1st and October 6th this year. And yet the Israelis are the good guys, and we're the West supporting them. And we have Joe Biden and Richie Sunak and Keir Starmer saying it's all right to turn off the water, the food, the electricity, the energy. This week, Jude, I'm going to wrap it up now. I was listening on Drive Time and RT, and there was a guy on who told the absolutely harrowing story of a surgeon carrying out an amputation of the foot of a 12-year-old boy without anesthesia on the floor of an overcrowded hospital. Can you imagine the horror of that, the pain? Dude, I went and got me my eyes pierced yesterday because of that thing I was telling you about at the start. Dude, I was as nervous as be damned because it's the first time it ever happened. What I went through was nothing. I mean, nothing. Imagine that wee fella. Imagine, sir. And Dude, as well as that, the water is turned off. They have no drinking water. They're drinking salted water. The sewage system has backed up, and apparently there are now dead bodies decomposing in the streets. The sewage system is so bad that they say there are maggots gathering around the wounds of the children. And we're sitting supporting all that. And oh, by the way, the Palestinians are the bad guys and the Israelis are the good guys. Give us a break.
Yeah. It's a funny thing now. I was looking at, I think I said before, the fact that they set up the Jewish state Israel in 1948. And I was thinking, I think I suggested a one nation secular state. But then I was reading up on the history of the Jews over the hundreds of years since, I don't know, the 3rd century, 4th century. They really have had a terrible time of it, you know.
Absolutely.
The Jews have been the object of so many oppressions, mainly Christian, actually.
Absolutely.
But so you see, we talk about the Great Hunger and how it got into the Irish psyche. Yeah. Can you imagine what's in the Jewish psyche after the way they have been treated for so long?
6 million of them died in the during the Holocaust. Yeah. There's been numerous pogroms against Jews. The Jews are one of the most, probably the most discriminated people on the face of the earth. But that doesn't give them the right to then victimize somebody else.
That's right. So I was trying to think and say, well, the idea of a one-state solution. Everybody, Palestinian, Jew, Christian, whatever, living in a secular state. And simply in the normal way, like America or England or Ireland now, people of different faiths or no faith, sort of treating each other as human beings. You don't think that...
it's not going to happen, Jim. It's not going to happen.
Why not? Why not? Do they not trust us?
Netanyahu said about a couple of years ago during an election, I actually made a straightforward sectarian broadcast. He told the Jews to get out and vote because the Arabs were going to overrun them. You know, and it's the old. No, remember when in Derry
Paisley.
When they
that's Paisley. That's Paisley.
Exactly. Remember when way back in the 1950s in Derry when they were doing their gerrymandering, the Unionists, very simple. They put about 30,000 Catholics up in the Craigan and give them a sort of two representatives or whatever it was, and then they put 5,000 Protestants and 3,000 Catholics and give the Protestants two representatives as well. No, that's not accurate, but you know the point.
Yes,
I'm making.
I know.
Yeah, but they put 2.5 million Palestinians into Gaza and cut the place off. And by the way, it's an apartheid state. And Jimmy Carter described it as such back about 20 years ago, the American president. If it's good enough for Jimmy Carter, it's certainly good enough for me. But anyway, Jude, here's the thing. Let's get back to Suella Braverman. Is she saying that everyone who goes out and stands up for this, are we all supposed to be Tory party views on Israel? Are we all supposed to accept her? Wait, Jude, here's the other thing. As she is Home Secretary, does she now get to decide who the police should arrest? Does she get to decide who should be allowed to march, who should not be allowed to march? When did a Home Secretary get the right to tell a chief what to do?
That's right. I agree with you there, Pat. I think you put your finger on it. She's put terrible pressure on the police because she wants to get some political kudos out of it. If there's
Yeah,
trouble tomorrow, tomorrow, yeah. If there's trouble
yeah,
tomorrow, she'll be delighted.
yeah,
I dare say she'll be delighted because you'll be able to say, "Look, I told you these guys were going to be trouble. They're filled with hate, etc., etc." If they don't, well, she might say that's because she's given the warning, and the police have learned how to treat these people and make sure they don't get up to mischief. Uh, she's just a very ambitious politician, another very ambitious politician. And when politicians are ambitious for anything, short term or long term, they are oblivious to anything else. Joe Biden, my God, am I disappointed in that man. Rishi Sunak, I'm not disappointed in him because I knew that's the kind of thing he would do. So I really don't know. Suella is such an unattractive woman. I don't mean that physically. I just mean there's something about her that's nasty. There's a nasty. I feel there's a nasty quality there, but maybe that's me projecting onto her something that I discern from her motives. Would that be true? Or
yeah, yeah. She says, by the way, she came out with a brilliant line. By the way, she included Northern Ireland, which she got totally wrong, but we'll come back to it.
what
She
did she
says
say
that
about
they're
that? Aye.
basically she was implying that the people who are her allies, the Unionists, are bigots, etc., and so on. She got it totally wrong. The fact that she didn't realize the type of people who would be supporting Israel and supporting the Tory party are the very people she was criticizing,
I see. Yeah,
which is
yeah,
brilliant. But anyway, she said there's a perception that the police go easy on left
yeah.
leaning, and come down much harder on right wing. She
Hmm.
pointed to things like the Black Lives Matter and all. But
Yeah.
here's a point, and I'm really going to go for this one. I think there's something. No, I remember reading years ago there was an SS officer who had Jewish blood, and because that he hid it, he was the most ruthless and nasty. There's something about Suella that she is. She, the fact that she would condemn Black Lives Matters to the police went easy on, and I think Sir Mark Rowley and people like that. The reason they go, I think they treat left leaning things slightly different is most left leaning things are in favor of things. They march in favor of treating people well, like Black
Yeah.
Lives Matter.
Yeah.
The right come out with hate. Tommy Robinson of the National Defence League is saying, I call on everybody to gather at the Senate to protect us from the hordes of invaders, that type of thing. Dude, most of the right wing stuff is full of hate. The left wing things are positive. There's asking for justice and fairness and equality. Well, and by and large, most of them are very, very peaceful. The cops don't have to be, but a lot of the right wing stuff is very, very, right. I know,
It's
politically dodgy.
cut and dried. And the fact
Yeah.
that Tommy Robinson's not his name at all, it's something else.
No, Andrew Lennox. He's actually half
Uh,
Irish, by the way.
but I was thinking about that about Suella Braverman. I wonder if she's an example of what we used to know as Catholics, where
Yeah,
you have somebody who'd become unionist, who comes from a nationalist background. They tend to want to prove themselves all the more that they're stout unionists. And we saw
yeah,
that even with the Shankill Butchers. Lenny Murphy, they say, was the vicious person he was because of the fact that his name was Murphy. And he felt he had to
yeah.
sort of prove himself at some level. Maybe
Right.
it mightn't have been a conscious level, but at a sort of subconscious level.
Sure, here's a question for you. See some of the stuff she's come out with, Suella
Yeah.
Braverman. If a white person had to come out with some of the stuff that she's come out with, would they got away with it?
No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't. They wouldn't. And she's, in a sense, she's using her racial background to protect herself. Let me move it sideways now, Pat. Saturday is the day that the march is, and Sunday is Remembrance Sunday. And there have been people, and
Yeah,
I think Braverman might have been among them, who say this is wrong. This is a clash. We shouldn't have this. This is the weekend for the remembrance. Do you think there's any merit in that sort of line, or do you think that there is what some people call poppy fascism?
absolutely, Jude. There's poppy fascism. Jude, Suella Braverman shouldn't get the right to decide for me whether I go on a peaceful protest in favor of Palestine. Like, we get for this is sort of Trump politics. That this thing Trump sort of decides. That. I remember they cleared a street somewhere in Washington, a Black Lives protest, a legitimate one, which had police and all the rest of it, to allow Trump to march down with a couple of his thugs. And it was straight out of Hitler's sort of school of fascism.
Yeah.
Dude, I should have the right to either wear a poppy, not wear a poppy. You should have the right to say, well, you want a poppy or not. You should have the right to decide whether you're going to go on a march to support Palestine or go to a march to support Israel. Up to you. And a democracy. Suella Braverman has basically decided that as Home Secretary, she gets the right to decide operationally what the police should do. Basically, she's telling the police, these people, because they are not our people, they're not allowed to march. Let's switch it to the next time. Say it's a Labour Home Secretary, and they switch it the other way. Say they say those in favour of Israel are not allowed to march. What concept?
Yeah, I don't think that would work some way.
It won't happen.
Yeah. I want to come back to the poppy wearing. Are all the presenters on BBC Northern Ireland, or maybe BBC generally, television, wearing poppies now?
I haven't noticed, Jude, but I presume most of them are. Remember Donna Traynor?
That's exactly what I was going to come to. She was squeezed into doing it, and she's resigned. And I gather she's taken a case, not about the poppy, but about, I think, the age discrimination. But
I think that case was settled, Jude, in her favour.
Was it? Oh, very good. I'm very pleased to hear that. Okay, so supposing you had a wee shop, Pat, right? And you had customers, some of whom you knew were Unionists, and some of whom you knew were Nationalists, some of whom you knew were Republicans. Would you have a little tray with poppies on it and offers to make donations to the I don't know, I guess goes to the veterans, I guess?
On a very simple basis. I don't agree with wars, and I haven't agreed with a lot of stuff, but many decent people died in those wars. Many people joined up for a whole variety of reasons.
Yeah.
And the other side of the story, I don't like the idea. The thought, the reality kicks in that I wouldn't fancy Hitler running Ireland. So I would leave those people a choice. But Jude, I would also sell white poppies. And on the simple basis, look, if you don't want to support this, here's another option. Like those who died, there was very many decent men from these islands died for what they thought. So I am not going to knock that at all. But I don't think I should be forced to wear a poppy.
I once interviewed a Secretary of State who has since been disgraced and kicked out of Parliament, and we're talking about the people who joined, the Irish people who fought in the First World War. And he said, look at that, they didn't have to go, and they went in their thousands. And I said, would some of them have gone because they really just needed the money and they had to live somehow?
Yeah, certainly did.
And he said, oh, that's preposterous. How? He didn't say, how dare you, but he just about said it. And said, oh, no, they went because they loved their country, the UK. I just, what do you do with people like that? Was he playing a part then, or did he believe that?
Well, another thing, David Blevins, the senior Sky correspondent, I hope he's all right, because he came out with the strongest line I've ever heard in a comment. He basically says, Suella Braverman, her comments, he says, are so far off the mark that they're causing head scratching that she basically doesn't know what she's talking about. And really, was it Angela Smith? Was that her name? The secretary, Theresa May appointed. She could. No, I don't think her name was Angela Smith, but she didn't know that Catholics voted for nationalist parties.
Oh no, that was the other woman. I know who you're talking about.
I can't remember her name. June, that's and by the way, there's an unbelievable editorial in the newsletter today that is saying that the Catholics or the Nationalists are the bigots, not the Unionists. And I'm going, Jesus, what planet are you? Whoever wrote that? But the bottom line is, British politicians, I think they've just lost interest in this place totally. Northern Ireland, totally. I think they've just sort of switched off. Unionism has become such a toxic brand that nobody gives a shit.
Well, it's a difficult one too. For even you do say that Britain's not interested. The fact of the matter is that we have unionist parties here, and one of the very biggest is the DUP. Now, you may say their attitude towards the Windsor framework is unreasonable. But there's an article in the Irish Times, maybe it was yesterday, which said 72% of DUP supporters agreed that the Windsor framework should be scrapped. And 62% of all unionists said the Windsor framework should be scrapped. So, in this article, I'm not going to say who the journalist was, but they said that, essentially said there was a fair chance that when Sinn Féin got into, when and if they got into power in the South, that they would make a hymns of it the same way that the Scots nationalists have made in Scotland. So what do you think of that? That wasn't a newsletter. That wasn't a newsletter. That was in the Irish Times.
I know who you're talking about now as well. Anyway, here's the thing, Jude. Remember two things. Remember before Tony Blair got into power, everybody says, "Oh, they've Labour been out for 18 years, or whatever it was. They've no experience, and they'll make the balls of it." No matter what you think of Tony Blair, for Britain had about 10 brilliant years under Labour. They had a fair one as well. Remember Bill Clinton as well. Somebody said he's young, he's inexperienced, and he, and he got into power, and he changed a lot in America for the better, rightly or wrongly, whether you agree or disagree with him. Right? That was so. This thing, Sinn Féin, Jude, even you can see it already, even in their attitude to Palestine as recent days, which I think is very dodgy. But they're going towards the centre, and they're clever, and they're young, and I don't think they're going to make the mistakes that everybody say they're going to make. But Jude, I presume basically that Sinn Féin are going to be just a sort of left of centre party, and if unionism is waiting for Sinn Féin to mess up, I think they could be very much disappointed. But the other thing as well, Jude, like if the Tory party, if the Home Secretary doesn't even know the difference between unionists and nationalists in the North, that's the first thing. But Jude, let's final point. Whether unionism likes it or not, the Windsor framework is here to stay.
I think that's the last and final statement should be made. It's there. You gotta live with it, live with it or forget it. They may. I'm going to say something.
Hold on. Here's a question for you. If you say what 72% of DUP voters say
yes, they think the Windsor framework should be scrapped.
Aye, right, Jude. What happens? What's going to happen? Because Jude, let's get this clear. You and I know, and I think everybody else knows. Anybody that pays attention to politics, it is not going to be scrapped. The UK has now sort of balanced its relations with the EU, and it's for Northern Ireland. They're not going to go back in that. So what happens now?
But of course, the reason why the 72% said or feel that they
it's identity politics. That's what it is.
Well, it's. I think it's further than that. It's a bit what's the alternative? The alternative is a land border in Ireland, and I think essentially that's what the DUP has been working towards all along. That's why they went for a hard Brexit. They assumed that you'd have a hard border across Ireland. And again, if you think the Windsor framework is not going to be dismantled, I can tell you one thing that's even more definite, and that is there will not be a hard border in Ireland again. I swear, I talked to some of those people in the border communities the time of Brexit, and my God, they were there. I said, what did they put up? Customs posts and so on. Jesus, the things that they said. I mean, they believed these are ordinary people now. These are people with businesses, farmers, and so on. They were absolutely 100%. It's not going to go back to the old days where we're going to have checkpoints across the border.
Like there were guys on the border here, literally 5 miles from where I am, 4 miles, who had to go around a checkpoint to go and check their own cattle. They're never going to go back.
No.
But are the unions going to sit back and think, maybe we will wait until the next general election, so we have, there'll be no storming. This week there was a whole lot of cancer supporters. There was a woman actually came on BBC. She says, "I am stage 4 cancer. I've got 12 months to live." She says, "We're here today protesting about services. Where are the politicians?" Maybe the DUP people think it's great. but they represent about 30%. Well, DUP gets 28% of the vote, or apparently on poll. But hey, that means about 70% of the people here do not support this.
Well, that's true. That's true. But it is also true that it is 72% of the DUP support what the DUP is doing, are all for scrapping the Windsor framework, and 62% of all unionists, all unionists are
Yeah, but Jude, have you put the Alliance Party, the Nationalist Party, and the 40 or 38% of unions who don't support, that's a significant majority that are in favour of Stormont return.
Okay, this is my last statement in this, and that is, I'm amazed that that figure is so high, because as you've pointed out, disease and life-threatening illnesses, they don't discriminate. Unionists are just as likely to get cancer as are nationalists or Republicans or anybody else. So I find it very hard to understand how people could be so intent on supporting something that actually is going to but it will potentially damage themselves. There you go. So,
by the way, you said something earlier on there. Susan McKenna, I can't remember the name of the book. She did it there she published last year. And she said, one of the things that the DUP did, she says, while they were saying on public, certain very sort of mellifluous things, all the rest, they were selling a message, a hardline message to their, vote for Brexit and we will get the hard border again. There'll be no choice. And she says they were selling that on the streets, that, Europe has been too good for the Republic. It's made the Republic quite sort of economic successful. And as well as that, it is, what would you say, what's the word, Jude? It softened the border so much that nobody can tell north or south and so on. Once we get a hard Brexit again, that will make us more British. That'll put the EU out of the way, and we will a hard border was a real possibility again. She doesn't actually use that term, but that's basically what she said. That's what they were selling. Jude, if anybody wants to look in the mirror and say who's messed up here, I think the DUP and unionist politicians who've supported the Brexit need to have a good hard look at themselves.
Yeah. And I think the phrase "on the wrong side of history" might be one that would apply in this case. Okay, let's go into something very briefly, Pat. I'd like to come back to the terrible situation in Gaza, but very briefly, this guy Josef Puska, who killed Aisling Murphy. I'm just interested in your views on it. I mean, he followed a couple of other women before he killed her, apparently. To the best of my knowledge, he didn't rape her, but he killed her, stabbed her to death. Does he not belong in a mental institution of some kind rather than a prison? Why would he do that? Why would somebody do that, Pat?
Yeah, exactly. He's 33 years of age. He's got
5 children.
Yeah, he's been living in Ireland for 10 years. He's from, was it Slovakia? I think it is. Slovakia. Slovakia. Right. No track record whatsoever. None. Nobody knows why he did it, what's the background to it, or whatever. But, the judge, yesterday, the judge said, when the jury was back in less than 2 hours, I think, the judge says to him, "Thank you for not wasting everybody's time here." Mm-hmm. He basically said what your man was saying was the biggest load of rubbish. He says, "What is it?" I called it nonsense. I remember writing that down somewhere. The defense was,
he said there's evil. Evil is in this room.
Your man's DNA was found under Aisling Murphy's fingernails. He had stabbed himself. He had gone to the hospital and so on. So, there was no doubt whatsoever that he was guilty.
My point, Pat, I'm not doubting the justice of what happened. But, well, I am. I'm wondering if the punishment is what should be applied. I mean, if you do something that is totally irrational, like killing somebody you don't even know, surely you belong in a mental institution rather than
But then his actions afterwards, Jude, were very, very logical. It was very clever.
That's true. That's true. Why would then? Okay, so let's assume he's sane. Why would he do that? Why would he take a?
Judge Tony Hunt said, "Have you? Oh no, your eyes are blinking. I thought you sort of froze on me there." Judge Tony Hunt said, as you said, there's evil in this room. Jude, is there some people who are just killers, psychopaths?
Well, that means that they're not right in the head. In other words, we're back to the mental institution for these people.
Well, no, I'm Dr. Collins. A friend of the guy I frequently mentioned, Kevin O'Doherty, the parish priest up the next parish up the road.
Okay.
Kevin, one day we're having this discussion, and he says, Pat, I thought it was a ridiculous thing, but anyway, he said it. He says, Pat, Adolf Hitler could go to heaven. And I says, Jesus, Kevin, you've got to be kidding. He says, there's something seriously, seriously wrong with that man. He says, anybody that would do what he. So he says, if you believe in a compassionate God, he says, maybe that there was something wrong that you can forgive somebody like that. Now, Jude, I don't know whether was he mad or was he bad, as my dad used to say. Like, I don't know. Like, was this guy mad or was he bad?
It's very difficult to know. I've always been of the theory, assuming people are all sane, right? I've always been of the theory that everybody do whatever thing they do, big or small, they do it because they believe it's okay to do it, it's right to do it.
Yeah.
Now, maybe I've been too soft on him, but how could he see it as right to kill Aisling Murphy, a young woman, like just out for a walk?
Beautiful looking wee girl who apparently was the loveliest person, a school teacher.
Was that it? Was it the fact she was it a sexual thing? Was it they wanted to destroy her because she was beautiful or pretty or whatever?
Dude, I haven't a clue. No, and now, no, there's no point in me saying I heard the news bulletins and I read a wee bit, but it was mainly cursory. I didn't get into depth. But apparently, if I remember correctly from what I heard on the radio earlier this week, he had followed two other women earlier in the day.
Yeah,
like there was something going on in his head, and Jude, I don't think there was a sexual motive because he did it in open and an open space and all the rest, and he stabbed her 11 times. And I don't think a rape was possible in an open space like that. So there was something, there was someone in his mind that, maybe the sexual thing was to kill somebody. I don't know. But no, Jude, I'm open to. Anyway, he was spotted within seconds. Sure, two women. They were on the other side of the bank. It was the Royal Canal, or whatever the hell they call it, down there. So anyway, maybe he would have raped her had not been disturbed. I just don't know, Jude. There's no point in me saying I do know.
Isn't it appalling? I was very touched actually by the boyfriend who tried to make a speech, and you could hear his voice quavering even as he spoke. Dear God!
But she was a lovely way. From everything I've read about her, apparently she's a lovely wee girl who did everything right in her life. She was kind, decent, honourable. She was a brilliant musician. She loved the kids. Apparently, she really went out of her way to help them. What's only the good day young?
Well, you begin to believe the judge almost that there's such a thing as pure evil. But then, I don't know, maybe that's a cop-out. Anyway, it's a very bitter soul because she's terrible loss. The classic case is somebody apparently deranged or evil as opposed to somebody beautiful and sweet and innocent, as far as I can see.
Maybe that was the problem. She was evil. Maybe that's what drew his attention.
Okay, now we've very little time left. We've just 6 minutes. Back to Gaza. Is there anything left to be said?
Jude, I've reached a stage, at this stage, let's get clear. I am 70 years of age. And see, I've reached this conclusion that the West is totally corrupt. That the fact that America's Biden, Jude, apparently about 65% of Americans don't support the ones that have been at least polled, don't support what Israel is doing. And I didn't realize that.
That's very
Britain,
good.
there's massive against it as well across Europe. Yet the power brokers in Washington, Westminster, and Brussels are in lockstep. They haven't called for a ceasefire yet. And you'd see the day now, I think whatever moral ground the West could have in recent years about various things, from here on, if I was China, if I was Russia, if I was Cuba, or any other country, I would simply say, don't lecture us about human rights. Don't lecture us about behavior during war. Don't try and take Russians to the Hague on human rights charges, and all the rest of it. After this, if you and by the way, what do you call him? Keir Starmer has tried to walk back from saying that he didn't support the turning off of water food, electricity. He most certainly did. By the way, it was downright lie. He actually said on TV. He said he was asked a question, and he said, "Well, Israel has a right to defend itself." What he was implying was, if they turn off the water, the electricity, the food, well, that's defending itself. He's trying to say afterwards he was answering a different question, but he knew what he answered.
Yeah, I find it heartening, the number of marches in favor of Palestine. And back though to the question, I don't know what we were talking about before we come on there, about the Jewish people have had a terrible, terrible time during their existence. Hundreds of years. They've been brutalized, they've been discriminated against, they've been killed simply because they were Jewish. So you can sort of see their point in a way, that, they've been treated like this, so they must defend themselves. I guess they believe, well, this is what they say, that Hamas, there's no point in saying, let's have a ceasefire, because Hamas, by its nature, is committed to the obliteration of Israel. And maybe if we were Israelis, we'd feel the same way. If these guys are going to kill us, well, we'll kill them first. No?
Yeah, but hold on. Jimmy Carter, the aforementioned Jimmy Carter, says in 2013, as far as I remember, that was the date, he said Hamas agreed publicly to recognize Israel, and return for a two-state solution. I think I mentioned this the last day as well. Netanyahu is on the record. It's not me making this up. He says there'll be no two-state solution during his time. Remember the Oslo Accord? Everybody says this was a great deal for the Palestinians. Agreed to that. The Israelis made sure it never happened. And remember, they keep saying we left Gaza and look what happened. They left Gaza because they were getting under so much hassle and they were getting so much stress. There was people dying and so on. But they left Gaza, and as if that they were doing this. We give them a chance to rule themselves. Dude, on leaving Gaza, the Israelis control the air, they control the ports, they control the seas, they control everything. So in other words, the Gazans were free. Gazans were free to walk in within the Gaza, but they couldn't go out. They couldn't do anything. So to say that was freedom, give us a break.
Yeah, I'm driven to this conclusion that in the world, might is right, and that is the case again and again and again. If people are defenseless, like say the indigenous people of Australia or New Zealand or Canada, America, they get ground down. If you're the biggest power, you can do what you want. Now, they've done, I mean, America's been in wars forever. They've done things. I was watching Oliver Stone, one of the pieces from Oliver Stone's documentary about JFK's killing. And I mean, it seems conclusive pretty well that he was killed because he was doing the wrong thing. They didn't want that to happen. The power simply rubbed him out. That's a very bleak view of human nature, Pat, isn't it? Would you agree with it? Would you agree?
So, you've just used a phrase that I hadn't thought of in a long time. Mate is right. The morality doesn't come into it, and it's in other words, Jude, we should all go for nihilism. In other words, whatever suits us, we just do it. That's because if you have no morals and if you have no conscience, and you just say, if I see somebody with something I want, just take it and well, fuck it, let them die.
But you see, that point is this, Pat. At a personal level, if you really believed that, people would be appalled. Yeah. And at a personal level, we don't operate like that. We might have people we don't like, but we don't go out and then thump them or kill them. And that's why I'm saying that guy, Josef Puska.
Might is right, Jude, right now.
But yeah, I think that exists at the state level, but maybe not so much at the normal everyday level, except for the likes of Josef Puska. Oh God, are we depressed? Both of our viewers, Pat. Tell us a wee song, Pat, or a joke, or maybe you could do a little mime or a bit of ballet dancing there, no?
Hey, my size ballet dancing.
Jesus, anybody who's a past member of St. Colum's College, go there tonight, is it? Because you're going to be a guest speaker.
Tonight, I'm the guest speaker tonight.
Not from dead. Break a leg. Break a leg.
Good luck,
just your own leg now, not somebody else's. Okay?
Bye, Jude.
Okay.
See you later, Jude.
Yeah, Pat.